The massive viewing screen in the Coalition Council chamber flickered to life, showing a blue and green planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Admiral Vexistar's 4 eyes studied the transmission data while his tentacles worked the control panels. Earth's first message to the galaxy had arrived 3 cycles ago, and today the Coalition would decide if these humans could join their peaceful union of worlds. Begin playback, Vextar commanded. The screen changed to show a human male in simple white robes standing in what looked like a garden. Behind him, tall buildings rose into a clear sky, their surfaces covered with green plants. The human smiled warmly. "Greetings, friends of the galaxy. I am Jinwoo Park, speaking for all of Earth. We have watched your stars for many years, hoping one day to join your great community of peace." Jinwoo gestured to the city behind him. "We have learned much in our time alone. We ended war on our world 500 years ago. We cured all diseases 300 years ago. Hunger became history 200 years ago. Now we wish to share what we have learned and learn from you." The transmission showed scenes from Earth. Children played in parks while adults tended to gardens. Hospitals where doctors used strange glowing devices to heal patients instantly. Laboratories where scientists worked on ways to restore damaged planets. Schools where young humans learned about compassion and understanding. "We know you fight a war against those who choose violence over peace," Jinwoo continued. "We do not offer weapons or soldiers. We offer something better, knowledge of how to turn enemies into friends, how to heal what war has broken, how to build a future where fighting becomes impossible." The recording ended. Vextar looked around the council chamber at representatives from 47 different worlds. The Kalari delegate, her crystal body glowing soft blue, spoke first. "Their cities are beautiful, no weapons visible anywhere. Their technology seems focused entirely on healing and growth. The readings match their claims," added the Morgan representative, his metal form clicking as he moved. "No military installations detected. Their power sources are clean. Their space traffic is minimal and appears to be for research only." Councillor Thren, speaking for the warrior clans of Valdris, seemed puzzled. How does a species survive without military strength? What protected them while they developed? "Perhaps they were lucky," suggested the Kalari. "Some worlds never face serious threats, or perhaps they found better ways to solve problems before violence became necessary." Vextar studied the data again. Earth's technology was impressive. Their medical advances could help the war effort by healing Coalition soldiers faster. Their environmental restoration techniques could repair worlds damaged by hegemony attacks. Their peaceful philosophy might even help find diplomatic solutions. Their application shows they understand our laws, Vextar announced. They request observer status first as required. They offer aid to war refugees. They want to study our culture and share their knowledge freely. The vote was quick. 47 worlds agreed. Earth would be welcomed as observers with a path to full membership once they proved their commitment to Coalition values. 3 days later, Jinwoo Park sat in a small room aboard the Coalition station orbiting Earth. Across from him, Dr. Haijin Ko reviewed the acceptance message on her tablet. Behind them, Captain Taemin Lee stood quietly by the window, watching Coalition ships patrol the system. "They accepted faster than we predicted," Haijin said softly. "Full observer status and an invitation to send representatives to their capital station." Jinwoo nodded. "Their war against the hegemony is going worse than they admit. They need hope. They need to believe peace is possible." "The intelligence reports were accurate," Taemin added without turning from the window. "Their military doctrine focuses on defense and territory control. They fight like they're trying not to lose rather than trying to win." Haijin pulled up holographic displays showing Coalition fleet movements. "Their ships are powerful but slow. Good shields, decent weapons, but they use predictable formations. They announce their attacks. They avoid civilian targets even when it would be tactically smart. They fight with honor," Jinwoo said. "That will make them easy to help when the time comes." Taemin finally turned from the window. "And the hegemony?" "Brutal but simple," Haijin answered, switching to recordings of hegemony attacks. "They use fear as a weapon. They target civilians first. They fight like animals. No strategy beyond destroy everything. Effective against honorable opponents, but they have obvious weaknesses." Jinwoo stood and walked to the window. Below them, Earth looked peaceful and beautiful. Cities full of gardens, oceans clean and blue, white clouds drifting across continents where wars no longer happened. The Coalition thinks we ended war because we became wise, he said quietly. The truth is simpler. We ended war because we became too good at it. When winning became too easy, war stopped being useful. He turned back to his companions, but they're not ready for that truth yet. They still believe war and peace are opposites. They don't understand that sometimes peace only comes after you prove that fighting you would be impossible. Heejin closed her tablet. The ship is ready. Engineering reports all systems are functioning perfectly. The Coalition scanning teams found exactly what we wanted them to find. Good, Taemin said. How long until we reach their capital station? 2 weeks at the speed they expect from our research vessel, Jinwoo replied. That gives us time to study their defenses, their communication systems, their military protocols. All in the name of understanding their culture, of course. He moved to a wall panel and pressed his hand against it. The panel glowed, revealing a complex display of ship systems and weapons arrays, all currently hidden from Coalition sensors. They invited us to observe their war. They want us to see how civilized species fight. They hope we can help them find a peaceful solution. Jinwoo's smile was gentle, but his eyes were sharp. We will observe. We will learn everything about their enemies and allies. We will study their tactics, their technology, their weaknesses and strengths. He closed the hidden panel. And when we're ready, we will show them what Earth really learned during our 500 years of peace. We will teach them the difference between never fighting and never needing to fight. Yejin and Taemin exchanged looks. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Earth's first contact with galactic civilization would go exactly as planned. Outside the window, Coalition ships continued their patrols, unaware that they were already being studied by predators who had learned to hide among the sheep. The Earthship Harmony drifted slowly toward Nexus Prime, the Coalition's largest space station. From the outside, it looked like exactly what Earth had claimed, a peaceful research vessel with smooth curves and no visible weapons. The hull gleamed white and blue, covered with sensors and communication arrays that any curious species might use to study the galaxy. Captain Taemin Lee stood on the bridge, watching the massive station grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Prime was beautiful in its own way, a crystal and metal structure that sparkled with lights from thousands of different species living and working together. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its ports while others patrolled the surrounding space. Coalition Control is requesting our arrival manifest, reported engineer So-Young Kim from her station. To any observer, she looked like a simple technician managing the ship's basic systems. The Coalition scanners couldn't detect the advanced weapon systems she had been designing since childhood. Send them the cultural exchange package, Taemin replied. Scientific equipment, medical supplies, gifts from Earth's various cultures. Nothing that would concern them. Commander Jae-hyun Choi entered the bridge carrying a tablet. His official title was Cultural Attaché, but his real job was military intelligence. Coalition Welcome Committee is preparing quarters for us in the diplomatic sector. They've arranged tours of their medical facilities, their peacekeeping academy, and their refugee centers. How thoughtful, Taemin said with a slight smile. They want to show us their best qualities. What about their military sections? Off limits to observers, of course. But they're planning a cultural demonstration of their fleet capabilities. They want to impress us with their strength while showing us how disciplined and honorable their warriors are. So-Young looked up from her controls. Perfect. We'll learn more from watching them show off than we could from any classified briefing. The Harmony docked smoothly at Nexus Prime. Coalition security teams came aboard for the required inspection, their scanners finding exactly what they expected. Peaceful research, equipment and gifts from Earth. They missed the weapon systems hidden behind medical scanners and the military. Computers disguised as cultural databases. Admiral Vextar himself came to greet the human delegation. His tentacles moved in patterns that Jae-hyun recognized as formal welcome gestures from their cultural studies. Captain Lee, welcome to Nexus Prime. The Coalition is honored by Earth's desire to learn from us. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship. Taemin bowed in the Earth style. Admiral Vextar, we are grateful for your welcome. Earth has much to learn from species who have achieved such unity across the stars. Come, let me show you what we have built together, Vextar said, leading them through the station's corridors. 47 worlds working as one, each species contributing their unique strengths to our common goals. The tour was impressive. Medical centers where Coalition doctors used advanced healing technology, to treat wounded soldiers. Research labs where scientists from different worlds work together on projects to help war refugees. Schools where young beings from across the galaxy learn to communicate and cooperate. This is beautiful, Jae-hyun said, watching children from 6 different species playing together in a learning center. How do you maintain such harmony with so many different cultures? Patience and understanding, Vextar replied. We learned long ago that diversity makes us stronger, but only when we respect our differences instead of fighting over them. They visited the refugee centers next. Thousands of beings from worlds attacked by the hegemony lived in comfortable temporary homes while coalition engineers worked to rebuild their planets. The humans asked careful questions about the refugees' experiences, their needs, their stories of survival. So Young took particular interest in the engineering projects. Your planet restoration technology is amazing. How do you power such large-scale operations? Fusion reactors mostly, with some solar collection systems, the coalition engineer explained proudly. We can restore a damaged atmosphere in just a few years. Fascinating. And your defensive systems? How do you protect the refugee camps from further attacks? Shield generators and patrol fleets. We've learned to create safe zones that the hegemony cannot penetrate. The engineer didn't notice So Young making mental notes about power requirements, shield frequencies, and patrol patterns. Information that seemed innocent to a peaceful species, but was pure gold to someone who understood warfare. The cultural demonstration came on their 3rd day. Admiral Vextar invited the humans to watch coalition fleet exercises from the station's observation deck. Dozens of sleek warships performed complex maneuvers in the space around Nexus Prime. Our forces are trained for defensive operations primarily, Vextar explained as they watched. We protect our worlds and our allies, but we do not seek conquest. Timon studied the formations through his binoculars. The coalition ships moved in precise patterns, each vessel knowing its place and role. Their weapons fired in coordinated volleys that would devastate any normal enemy. Their shields overlapped to create protective barriers around weaker vessels. Impressive discipline, he said honestly. Your captains clearly train together regularly. Yes, unity of purpose requires unity of action. Each ship captain knows that their duty is to protect others, not to seek personal glory. Jae-hyun watched the exercise with different eyes. He saw how the coalition formations were designed to minimize casualties rather than maximize damage. How they always left escape routes for enemies who wanted to retreat. How they focused on disabling enemy ships rather than destroying them. Have these tactics been effective against the hegemony? He asked carefully. Vextar's tentacles drooped slightly. We have prevented them from taking our core worlds. But each battle costs us more ships than we can afford to lose. They fight without honor, without mercy. They target our medical ships. They attack refugee convoys. They use tactics that no civilized species would consider. What kind of tactics? They sacrifice their own ships to ram ours. They use captured coalition vessels as bombs. They broadcast recordings of torture to demoralize our crews. They are animals, not warriors. So Young leaned forward. Have you considered adapting your own tactics to counter theirs? How could we do such things and remain who we are? If we become like them to defeat them, then they have already won. The humans exchanged subtle glances. The coalition was losing because they cared more about fighting honorably than fighting effectively. They would rather lose as heroes than win as villains. That evening, back aboard the Harmony, the human team reviewed what they had learned. Their technology is excellent, So Young reported. Ships, weapons, shields, all top quality. But their tactics are designed for fighting other honorable opponents, not for total war. The hegemony is winning through brutality and unpredictability, Jae-hyun added. The coalition can't adapt because adaptation would mean abandoning their principles. Taemin looked at the tactical reports they had gathered. Coalition fleet positions, communication codes, supply routes, defensive strategies. Everything they would need to understand both sides of this war. They invited us here to learn about peace, he said quietly. They want us to help them find a diplomatic solution with the hegemony. And will we? So Young asked. Taemin's smile was cold. Oh yes, we will help them find peace. But first, they need to learn what Earth discovered long ago. Sometimes the only way to achieve lasting peace is to become so terrifyingly good at war that no one dares disturb it. He activated a hidden communication system. Send word to Earth Command. Phase 1 is complete. Request permission to proceed to Phase 2. The response came quickly. Permission granted. Show them what humans learned during our 500 years of peace. The emergency session of the Coalition Council began with terrible news. Admiral Vexitar's image flickered on screens throughout the galaxy as he delivered the report that every species had feared. The hegemony has broken through our outer defenses. 3 core worlds have fallen. Kepler Prime is under siege. Our projections show complete defeat within 40 cycles unless we receive immediate military assistance. Jinwoo Park sat in the observer section, his face showing the appropriate shock and concern that any peaceful species would feel hearing such news. Around him, representatives from dozens of worlds argued frantically about evacuation plans and last resort defenses. The hegemony has 15 battle fleets moving toward our capital systems, continued Vextar. They're using captured coalition ships as shields. Our forces cannot fire on our own vessels even when they're being used against us. Counselor Thren of Valdris slammed his armored fist on his desk. Then we die with honor. Better to fall as heroes than live as slaves. Honor will not save our children, snapped the Kalari delegate. We need solutions, not pretty speeches about heroic deaths. Jinwoo stood slowly. The chamber fell quiet as all eyes turned to the human observer who had rarely spoken during his weeks at Nexus Prime. If I may, he said in his calm, gentle voice, Earth would like to offer assistance. Vextar's tentacles curled in confusion. Ambassador Park, we appreciate your concern, but what assistance could a peaceful species provide? We need weapons and warriors, not healing technology and wise words. Jinwoo's smile was sad and knowing. Admiral Vextar, you invited Earth to observe your war. For these past months we have observed. We have learned. We have studied both your tactics and those of your enemies. He walked to the center of the chamber. You asked us what Earth learned during our 500 years without war. You assumed we learned wisdom and compassion. You were partly right. Jinwoo touched a control panel and the chamber's screens changed to show Earth's solar system. But instead of the peaceful research vessels the Coalition expected to see, hundreds of sleek warships moved in perfect formations around every planet and moon. We did learn wisdom, Jinwoo continued as gasps echoed through the chamber. We learned that the highest form of wisdom is understanding when peace is possible and when it is not. The screens showed more ships emerging from hidden bases throughout Earth's system. Massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the Coalition had ever built. Smaller vessels that moved like living things through space. Weapons platforms that bristled with technology the Coalition couldn't identify. We learned compassion, Jinwoo went on. We learned that true compassion sometimes means doing terrible things to terrible people, so that good people can live in peace. Admiral Vextar stared at the screens in shock. But your cities, your culture. You said you ended war 500 years ago. We did end war, Jinwoo replied. We ended it by becoming so devastatingly efficient at warfare that no one on Earth dared start another conflict. We perfected the art of war so completely that war became obsolete. A new image appeared, Captain Taemin Lee standing on the bridge of what the Coalition knew as the peaceful research vessel Harmony. But the ship behind him had transformed. White plating had retracted to reveal black armor. Sensor arrays had reconfigured into weapon systems. The gentle curves had shifted into the predatory lines of a warship. Captain Lee, Jinwoo said formally, please report on your observations. Taemin's voice was crisp and professional. The Coalition fights with honor but without effectiveness. They announce their attacks, avoid civilian targets, and allow enemies to retreat. The hegemony fights without honor but with brutal efficiency. They target civilians first, use deception constantly, and never retreat. New figures appeared on screen. Humans the Coalition had never seen before. Admiral Misun Jang, her uniform bearing decorations from conflicts the Coalition couldn't imagine. General Dong Hyun Lim, standing before formations of soldiers whose equipment looked alien and deadly. Dr. Yan Ho Bei, surrounded by weapons that seemed to bend physics itself. The Coalition asks what assistance Earth can provide, Jinwoo said. Earth offers you a choice. You can continue fighting honorably until you lose honorably, or you can let us show you how to end this war permanently. Counselor Thren found his voice first. You lied to us. You said you were peaceful. We never lied, Jinwoo corrected gently. We are peaceful. Earth has not seen warfare in 500 years. Our children play in gardens while learning to read poetry and plant flowers. Our scientists spend their time healing diseases and cleaning oceans. He gestured to the warships on screen. But we remember. We remember every lesson learned in 10,000 years of human conflict. We remember every strategy that worked, every weapon that ended battles quickly, every technique that made victory inevitable. Why? Whispered the Kalari delegate. Why hide your strength? Because strength that must be displayed constantly is not true strength, Jinwoo explained. A species that needs to prove its power has already shown its weakness. We came to the galaxy to see if we had found equals or if we had found children who needed protection. Admiral Vextar's voice shook. And what did you decide? Jinwoo's expression softened with something like affection. We found family. Good people who fight for the right reasons but lack the tools to win. People who would rather die with honor than live with shame. People worth saving. He looked around the chamber at the frightened, angry, and confused faces staring back at him. The hegemony believes strength comes from brutality. The coalition believes strength comes from honor. Earth learned long ago that true strength comes from the ability to end conflicts so completely that they never happen again. Admiral Mi-sun Jang is moving 12 battle fleets to Kepler Prime, Jinwoo announced. General Dong-hyun Lim is deploying psychological warfare specialists to break hegemony morale. Dr. Yeon-ho Bae is preparing weapons that will turn the enemy's own technology against them. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species demanded explanations. Others called for Earth's immediate expulsion. A few asked tactical questions about human capabilities. Jinwoo waited patiently for quiet. The coalition invited Earth to join your community of peaceful species. That invitation stands. But understand, Earth's definition of peace is different from yours. We do not believe in peace through surrender. We believe in peace through victory so complete that future wars become impossible. He touched another control, and the screen showed hegemony fleets suddenly changing course, fleeing from invisible threats. Their communications filled with panic and confusion as ships began turning against each other. The war will be over in 3 days, Jinwoo said simply. The hegemony will surrender unconditionally, and their leadership will be removed. Their worlds will be placed under protective custody until their populations can learn to live peacefully. And after that? Admiral Vextar asked quietly. Jinwoo's smile was warm and genuine. After that, Earth will help you build a peace that lasts forever. Not because everyone agrees to be good, but because everyone understands the consequences of being bad. He bowed to the assembly. You thought Earth was peaceful. You were right, but you misunderstood what peace really means. Peace is not the absence of war. Peace is what happens when war becomes impossible. The chamber fell silent as species throughout the galaxy realized that everything had changed. They had invited observers to watch their war. Instead, they had invited gods to judge their enemies. The Battle of Kepler's Gate had been raging for 18 hours when the human fleet arrived. Coalition forces fought desperately to hold the final defensive line protecting their core worlds. But everyone knew they were losing. Admiral Vextar watched from his command ship as another coalition cruiser exploded under hegemony fire. Sir, unknown vessels approaching from the outer system, his sensor officer reported. Configuration matches Earth designs, but the readings don't make sense. Vexitar studied the display. 12 human ships moved toward the battle zone, but they seemed to flicker in and out of existence on his sensors. Sometimes they appeared as single vessels, sometimes as entire fleets, sometimes as nothing at all. Coalition Command, this is Admiral Mi-sun Jang of the Earth Defense Force, came a calm female voice over the communications channel. We are assuming tactical control of this engagement. All coalition vessels are to follow our instructions precisely. Earth Admiral, with respect, we appreciate your assistance. But coalition forces have fought together for Admiral Vextar, Mi-sun interrupted, her voice cutting through his words like ice. In the next 30 seconds, the hegemony is going to launch a concentrated assault on your left flank, using captured coalition ships as shields. Your current formation cannot counter this attack without destroying your own vessels. Vextar looked at his tactical display. Nothing indicated an imminent attack on the left flank. How could you possibly know? His sensors screamed warnings as 50 hegemony vessels, led by 3 captured coalition destroyers, emerged from behind a nearby asteroid and charged directly at his left flank. All coalition ships, emergency maneuver pattern 7 Alpha immediately, Mi-sun commanded. Do not hesitate. Do not question. Move now. Coalition training took over. Ships across the fleet executed the emergency maneuver, pulling back from their positions just as the hegemony assault reached maximum range. The captured coalition ships, expecting to find easy targets, instead found empty space. "Now watch," Mi-sun said quietly. "Commander Jae-hyun Choi, begin psychological operations." Something changed in the space around the captured coalition ships. The hegemony vessels that had been following them suddenly slowed, then stopped completely. On the communication channels, coalition officers could hear hegemony voices screaming in panic and confusion. "What's happening to them?" Vextar asked. "Humans understand that war is fought in the mind as much as in space," Mi-sun explained. "Commander Choi is broadcasting frequency patterns that trigger fear responses in hegemony brain chemistry. Their own nervous systems are turning against them." The captured coalition ships began firing on their hegemony escorts. But these weren't coalition weapons anymore, somehow. The humans had modified them to be far more powerful and precise than anything the coalition had ever built. "Engineer So-young Kim has been very busy during your ship inspections," Mi-sun continued. "Every coalition vessel that visited human space now carries her modifications. Your weapons are now our weapons. Your sensors are now our sensors. Your shield generators are now broadcasting exactly the frequencies we want them to broadcast." Vexitar stared in horror and amazement as his own ships began fighting with capabilities he had never seen. Coalition cruisers that should have taken minutes to destroy enemy vessels were cutting through hegemony defenses in seconds. Weapons that had barely scratched enemy armor were now punching through it like paper. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How did you modify our ships without us knowing?" "Because you invited us to learn about your technology." Captain Taemin Lee's voice joined the conversation. "Every scan we performed, every system we examined, every cultural exchange we participated in, we were installing improvements. Your own cooperation gave us access to everything we needed. The Harmony, no longer disguised as a research vessel, moved through the battle like a predator among sheep. Its weapons didn't just destroy hegemony ships. They captured them, converted them, turned them against their former allies. Within minutes, half the hegemony fleet was fighting for the humans. Dr. Yeon-ho Bae, deploy the resource conversion systems," Mi-sun ordered. New weapons appeared on the human ships, devices that seemed to reach out with invisible hands and tear apart enemy vessels. But instead of simply destroying them, these weapons broke down the wreckage and rebuilt it into ammunition and fuel for the human fleet. "You're turning their own ships into weapons against them," Vextar realized. "Waste not, want not," Dr. Bae's cheerful voice replied. "Why build new weapons when your enemies keep delivering raw materials directly to you?" The hegemony fleet was collapsing. Ships that had been confident in their superior numbers now found themselves outnumbered by their own captured vessels. Crews that had trusted in brutal tactics discovered that brutality was useless against opponents who understood it better than they did. But the humans weren't finished. General Dong-hyun Lim's voice came over the communications as boarding pods launched from human ships toward surviving hegemony vessels. "Coalition forces, observe carefully. You are about to see the difference between fighting to win territory and fighting to win hearts and minds." The boarding actions weren't like anything the coalition had ever seen. Human soldiers didn't storm through enemy ships destroying everything in their path. Instead, they moved like surgeons, precisely targeting command systems and communication nodes while leaving crew quarters and life support untouched. "We're not here to kill you," human voices could be heard telling hegemony crews over captured communication channels. "We're here to free you from leaders who send you to die for their pride. Surrender now and you'll be treated better than your own officers ever treated you." One by one, hegemony ships began surrendering, not because they were defeated, but because their crews realized they were fighting for the wrong side. The hegemony leadership told their people that strength comes from taking what you want. General Lim explained to the amazed coalition officers, "We're showing them that real strength comes from making others want to join you." Within 6 hours, the battle was over. Not because the hegemony fleet had been destroyed, but because it had been converted. Ships that had arrived as enemies departed as allies, their crews convinced that cooperation with Earth was better than loyalty to leaders who had abandoned them. Admiral Vextar sat in his command chair, staring at tactical displays that showed the complete transformation of the largest space battle in coalition history. His own ships had performed miracles. Enemy vessels had switched sides. Human technology had turned the laws of physics into suggestions. Admiral Zhang, he said slowly. What happens now? Mi-sun's image appeared on his main screen. She looked tired but satisfied, like someone who had completed a difficult but necessary task. Now you learned the most important lesson of human warfare, she said. The best victory is the one that makes future battles impossible. We didn't just defeat the hegemony fleet. We convinced it to join us. We didn't just win a battle. We ended a war. She gestured to the converted hegemony ships now flying in formation with coalition vessels. These crews will return to their home worlds not as defeated enemies, but as witnesses to a better way. They'll tell their people that Earth offers partnership instead of domination, prosperity instead of conquest. And if their governments refuse? Vextar asked. Mi-sun's smile was gentle, but her eyes were steel. Then their people will choose new governments. We've learned that the most effective way to change an enemy's mind is to show them a better alternative and let them choose it for themselves. As the human fleet began organizing the massive combined force of coalition and converted hegemony ships, Vextar understood that he had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans hadn't just won a battle, they had redefined what warfare could be. Welcome to the new galaxy, Captain Lee said over the communications, where wars don't end in destruction, they end in transformation. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler's Gate, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Jinwu Park stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, now the headquarters of what the species had begun calling the Terran Protectorate, watching construction crews from dozens of worlds working together on projects that would have been impossible before Earth's arrival. Former hegemony worlds sent their best engineers to help rebuild coalition planets damaged in the war. Coalition scientists worked alongside human researchers to develop technologies that could restore entire ecosystems in weeks instead of years. Most surprising of all, former enemies now served together on mixed crews aboard ships designed using Earth's impossible technology. The integration is proceeding faster than our models predicted, Dr. Hai-Jin Ko reported, approaching Jinwu with her daily briefing. 73% of former hegemony worlds have requested full membership in the new protectorate. The remaining 27% are being persuaded by their own populations. Jinwu nodded, unsurprised. Humans learned long ago that the most lasting conversions come from within. Show people a better way to live and they'll choose it themselves. Through the observation windows, they could see Admiral Mi-sun Zhang's flagship returning from the Outer Rim territories. Her mission had been to contact the remaining independent species who had stayed neutral during the Coalition Hegemony War. Based on the size of the fleet following her ship, those meetings had gone well. Any resistance? Jinwu asked. 3 species initially tried to form an alliance against us, Ye-jin replied with amusement. Admiral Zhang invited them to observe our military exercises. They joined the Protectorate before the demonstrations were over. And the others? Once they realized that Protectorate membership meant protection, prosperity, and access to human technology, most signed up immediately. The Keth Empire actually offered to pay tribute for the privilege of joining. Jinwu chuckled. I hope Admiral Zhang explained that we don't want tribute. We want cooperation. She did. The Keth Emperor was so confused by the concept of powerful beings who don't demand payment that he's coming to Earth personally to study our culture. Captain Taemin Lee joined them, his uniform now bearing the insignia of Supreme Fleet Commander of the Protectorate Defense Force. The former coalition and hegemony officers under his command had adapted quickly to human military doctrine, once they understood that it was designed to prevent wars rather than simply win them. Report from the frontier surveys, he announced. Long-range scouts have identified 47 additional species within 100 light-years of our current territory. Most appear to be pre-interstellar, but 3 have achieved faster-than-light travel. Any threats? Jinwu asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Unlikely. The most advanced appears to be roughly equivalent to the Coalition's technology level 50 years ago, if they're hostile. Our standard first contact protocol should be sufficient. Jinwu smiled at the phrase, standard first contact protocols. Earth had refined their approach after the Coalition experience. They now arrived at new worlds as obviously powerful but clearly peaceful beings, offering gifts and knowledge while making it subtly clear that resistance would be both futile and unnecessary. Speaking of first contact, Hai-jin said, The delegation from the Outer Reach Confederacy has arrived for their formal introduction to Earth. Through the observation windows, they could see the visiting ships, sleek vessels from 7 different species who had formed their own alliance in the galaxy's outer rim. They had requested this meeting after hearing stories about the humans who had ended the Great War without destroying anyone. Admiral Vextar approached the human delegation, his movements showing the respect and slight nervousness that most species now displayed around Earth representatives. 6 months ago, he had been the supreme commander of the Coalition's military. Now he served as liaison between human leadership and the various species adapting to the new galactic order. Ambassador Park, he said formally, the Outer Reach delegation is ready for their meeting. They've prepared questions about Earth's methods. I'm sure they have, Jinwoo replied kindly. Fear and curiosity are natural responses when meeting a species that rewrites the rules of the galaxy. Shall we help them understand what those new rules are? They made their way to the main conference chamber, now redesigned to accommodate the dozens of species that regularly met here. The Outer Reach delegation sat at a curved table, their various forms tense with uncertainty. Jinwoo took his place at the head of the table, flanked by Admiral Jang and General Lim. Behind them, holographic displays showed the current state of the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds working together under Earth's guidance, trade flowing freely between former enemies, conflicts being resolved through negotiation, backed by the quiet certainty that Earth would intervene if necessary. Welcome, friends, Jinwoo began, using the universal translator to address the delegation in their various languages. Earth is honored by your visit and your interest in joining the Protectorate. The lead delegate, a crystalline being whose species had developed on a high-gravity world, spoke first. Human Jinwoo, we have heard many stories about your people. Some say you ended the Great War in a single battle. Others say you can convert enemies into allies with a word. Still others claim you possess weapons that reshape reality itself. All true to some extent, Jinwoo replied calmly. Earth has capabilities that other species find difficult to understand. But our greatest weapon is not technology, it's perspective. What perspective? Asked another delegate. This one from a species that resembled mobile plants, General Lim answered. Most species see war and peace as opposites. Earth learned that they are 2 sides of the same coin. True peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict, it comes from being so prepared for conflict that others choose cooperation instead. Admiral Jang activated a holographic display showing Earth's current military deployments. We have the power to destroy any threat to galactic peace. More importantly, we have the wisdom to make that destruction unnecessary. Every species in the galaxy knows that Earth will protect those who cannot protect themselves, and will stop those who threaten others. But how do you maintain control over such a vast territory? The crystalline delegate asked. How do you prevent rebellions and uprisings? Jinwoo's smile was gentle. We don't control anything. We protect everything. There's a difference. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed the flow of resources, information, and technology throughout Protectorate space. Every world in the Protectorate benefits from membership. Their people live longer, healthier, more prosperous lives than they could achieve alone. Their children receive the best education in the galaxy. Their sick are healed by medical technology that seems like magic to many species. And in return, the plant-like delegate pressed. In return, they agree not to make war on their neighbors, Admiral Jang replied. They share their knowledge and resources with others. They resolve disputes through negotiation rather than violence. Simple rules that benefit everyone. What happens if someone breaks these rules? The temperature in the room seemed to drop slightly. General Lim's expression remained pleasant, but something in his eyes suggested depths of capability that the delegates couldn't imagine. Then Earth intervenes, he said simply, quickly, decisively, with exactly as much force as necessary to restore peace and no more. Taemin stepped forward, his commander's uniform glittering with decorations from conflicts across the galaxy. 3 months ago, a species called the Ravagers attempted to raid shipping lanes in the former hegemony territory. They believed the power vacuum left opportunity for traditional piracy. The hologram changed to show a distant star system where sleek Earth ships surrounded a small fleet of primitive raiders. Earth response time was 4 hours from initial distress call to complete. Resolution, Taemin continued. The Ravagers were given a choice. cease their attacks immediately and accept rehabilitation, or be removed as a threat to peaceful commerce. What did they choose? The crystalline delegate asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. They chose rehabilitation, Jinwoo said with satisfaction. The former Ravager clans are now serving as security escorts for the same merchant convoys they once attacked. They're quite good at the job. They know exactly how pirates think. The plant-like delegate shifted in what might have been amusement. You turned pirates into police? We turned predators into protectors, Dr. Haijin corrected, joining the conversation. One of humanity's greatest discoveries was that most aggressive behavior stems from insecurity and lack of purpose. Give aggressive species a constructive outlet for their instincts, and they become your most loyal allies. The meeting continued for several hours, with the human delegation patiently answering questions about Earth's technology, philosophy, and methods. By the end, all 7 species of the Outer Reach Confederacy had formally requested membership in the Terran Protectorate. As the delegates departed for their ships, Admiral Vexter approached Jinwoo with a question that had been troubling him for months. Ambassador, may I ask you something personal?